Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Jordan Christie.
And I'm Barry Graham.
We highlight the week's news and stories happening all over Hampton Roads. We have the latest stories as we spring into March. Families of local airmen and sailors are bracing for long deployments after the U.S. and Israel launched attacks in Iran over the weekend. 6 troops have died in the operation.
And you think of all the families here in Hampton Roads who are worried about their loved ones. This is not an option. He has to do that.
Virginia has confirmed double-digit measles cases in the first 2 months of 2026. That's already more than the total number of confirmed cases in 2025.
And a new analysis of Hampton Roads shows that options are limited for people who use housing vouchers to find suitable homes. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. On-demand ride-sharing can make public transit more convenient and practical. WHRO business and growth reporter Toby Cox says 3 cities in Hampton Roads are offering the service this year.
Chesapeake and Hampton are the newest cities in the region offering on-demand ride-sharing via Hampton Roads Transit.
Think of it as kind of a service like Lyft or Uber, but really with the reliability and price point of public transit.
That's Thomas Becker with HRT. He says people in those cities can use the HRT on-demand app or call to request a ride within 15 minutes. The service currently operates only within specific zones in each city. On-demand ride-sharing can expand access to public transit in areas where fixed route services like buses are limited or don't operate at all. And at $2 one way, Becker says it's a good deal. Newport News and Virginia Beach launched pilot rideshare programs last year. Newport News decided to continue it this year. Toby Cox, WHRO News.
Hampton University is partnering with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for a new class about living shorelines. WHRO's Catherine Heffner tells us how students will get some hands-on learning.
Living shorelines use natural materials like oysters and marsh grass instead of bulkheads or seawalls. Hampton University students have helped build some along the Hampton River and grew interested in learning more, says Professor Deidre Gibson. She's chair of the Environmental Science Department.
We wanted to find projects for them, that they could do right outside. And this is perfect for that.
Students will help build 1,200 feet of living shoreline on the edge of campus. Stacy McGraw with Wetlands Watch is helping adapt the course from the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional Program.
The challenges that we're looking at on our shorelines aren't going away. So the more people that we can have doing this work, the better chance we have of protecting these really critical habitats.
The course starts this fall and will include about 10 students studying marine science and architecture. Catherine Heffner, WHRO News.
Families of local airmen and sailors brace for long deployments after the Pentagon reports so far 6 troops died in the operation against Iran. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh shares their concerns as the U.S. gears up for fighting in the Middle East.
Senator Mark Warner stopped in Norfolk and Virginia Beach over the weekend, where he heard behind closed doors from families who have sailors in the region, including on the USS Gerald R. Ford. Warner says President Trump has not provided a clear rationale for striking Iran.
He says he respects our military. If he doesn't make that explanation clear, and you think of all the families here in Hampton Roads who are worried about their loved ones, this is not an option. He has to do that.
Democratic lawmakers in the House and Senate plan to press for a vote on a war powers resolution this week. Aside from the Ford, the Navy has at least 4 other Norfolk-based ships in the region. 11 F-22 fighters and their crew from Langley were staging in southern Israel. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
William & Mary is one of more than a dozen colleges that the Pentagon is cutting ties with over accusations of, quote, woke policies. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports the school is unaware why they were included.
The Pentagon said in its announcement that the institutions, quote, diminish critical thinking, have significant adversary involvement, or fail to deliver rigorous education grounded in realism. Federal officials say that's why they're ending the senior service program at William & Mary and other schools. William & Mary admins say they're puzzled and saddened by that, and that they got no official notice why the college was included. Only 1 student in the program is enrolled in Williamsburg. The Pentagon says the decision decision applies to all military personnel starting in 2026-27, though those currently enrolled may complete their courses. The military is eyeing Virginia Tech, George Mason, Regent University, and the University of North Carolina, among several others, as potential new partners instead. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
A decade-long survey on the Eastern Shore found balloons are a top source of litter in coastal Virginia. WHRO's Catherine Hafner dives into the details.
Christina Trapani was working with the Virginia Aquarium years ago when she noticed a trend with some of the sea turtles they rescued.
We would find bits and pieces of balloons in their bellies. It was obvious that this was something that could be affecting wildlife.
Trapani now leads Clean Virginia Waterways. The nonprofit recently finished a 10-year study of litter on Fisherman Island off the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. They found lots of food wrappers, cigarettes, and plastic bottles, but balloons and their ribbons ranked highest.
Anything that's released inland is going to get blown offshore, and then it's going to wash back up. We'd be out on the islands and actually watching balloons come in.
She says the numbers have decreased since a 2021 law that bans intentional balloon releases, but not by enough. Her group plans to open 11 balloon recycling stations around Hampton Roads. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Harrisonburg researchers and community leaders preserving a historic boarding house have found a trove of documents and photographs that make up a rich archive of Black entrepreneurial life in the early to mid-20th century. WMRA's Randy B. Hagee went to the home to learn more.
In a time when racial segregation in public accommodations was the law of the land, the Ida Mae Francis Tourist Home in Harrisonburg's Northeast neighborhood welcomed Black scientists, musicians, and travelers of all kinds from around 1912 to 1962. It stands today as a time capsule to its proprietor, her family, and their community. In the foyer, a hanging red orb lamp casts an otherworldly glow. It's a relic from the old Kavanaugh Hotel. The shelves of china cabinets are dotted with dainty, painted teacups hanging inside. A large mantelpiece with spirals of dark wood and carved animal heads commands most of one wall, possibly a souvenir from Ida's grandson's army service in Germany.
For me, it feels like a huge responsibility to make sure that this house lives on.
Harrisonburg Mayor Dina Reed is leading the preservation of the property, with the help of local historians, archaeologists, and archivists. Ida's grandchildren, Lois and Henry Rouser, were close with Reed's family. When Lois died in 2022 with no immediate family left, she gave the house to Reed's father, William. William and Dina, with a few other family members, went to the house one day to organize the Rousers' belongings.
It was just drawers and drawers of paper and documents and receipts and newspapers, everything, pictures, right? And so they threw away nothing.
From what William says, like, for example, when Mary died, they didn't clean out her room or anything. They just closed the door.
Yeah.
Mark Metzler-Salwin, who leads the History and Political Science program at Eastern Mennonite University, is part of the preservation team.
It became known as, the place to stay if you're Black and traveling through the area.
The house is now included in state and national historic registries. Back in the day, it was listed in the Green Book, a wayfinder for Black travelers from the 30s to the 60s looking for businesses that would serve them. The National Park Service cites architectural historian Jennifer Root, who estimates that fewer than 20% of those places exist today. In addition to the house itself, its contents paint a vibrant picture of the family's life. Salwin points to a black and white photo of a stoic-looking young man wearing a suit with a Knights of Pythias fraternal organization badge. He believes this is Henry Francis.
Married Ida Mae Banks. It's a really great story because these are both prominent entrepreneurial Black families in the area. Ida Mae's dad was the big barber in town who cut all of the white elite's hair, owned his own business. Henry Francis, he was a shoemaker.
Henry died of pneumonia in 1912, leaving Ida to provide for their young daughter, Mary, aka Pete, put together a book of brownie camera photos starting around 1920. They feature loved ones wading into Raleigh Springs, coming home from church, and kissing on the running boards of a car.
Right, this is Mary's Instagram account from the 1920s, right? It has all these amazing pictures, Black youth life in the 1920s.
James Madison University archivists have already conducted a rough catalog of all the documents and photos. They'll eventually be housed at Carrier Library, which is currently under renovation. This property is notable not just for what's left within it, but in contrast to what was taken from this neighborhood. It sits at the literal corner of two urban renewal projects, where city leaders seized and demolished black homes and businesses in the 1950s and 60s, and replaced them with commercial and municipal properties. The Ida Francis Tourist Home was recently granted 501c3 status, and is currently fundraising through the Community Foundation to acquire and continue preserving this testament to ingenuity and hospitality. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, Centera is expanding its school-based telehealth clinics to Newport News and Portsmouth. But first, Virginia has confirmed 10 measles cases in the first 2 months of 2026. WHRO's health reporter Yicheng Wang reports that it's already double the total cases reported in all of 2025.
The state's new data shows most cases are in Northern Virginia. None have been reported in Hampton Roads. Lori Forlano is the director at the Office of Epidemiology at Virginia Department of Health. She says she is confident about the state's immunization infrastructure and vaccination rates.
In Virginia, we are not experiencing what we would consider an outbreak. Rather, we've had these sporadic mostly travel-related cases.
She says as long as measles cases remain elevated globally, Virginia will likely continue to see occasional travel-related infections. Virginia's kindergarten measles vaccination rate remains around 95%, but officials say pockets of lower coverage exist. Yicheng Wang, WHO News.
A proposal out of the Virginia Senate would roll back a more than 15-year-old data center tax break and raise billions in state revenue. But the data center industry, deeply entrenched in Virginia's economy thanks in part to that tax break, is calling on an unlikely ally in the fight to stop it. Brad Kuttner with partner station WVTF has the story.
The affordability for Virginians, it takes the savings back for them.
That's Senate President Louise Lucas speaking to reporters after she announced her plans to roll back a long-running tax break for Virginia's data center industry. Back in 2009, the legislature, seeing the opportunity for success on a business that relies on close proximity to one another, DC, and an under-ocean internet cable that reaches land in Hampton Roads, said data centers wouldn't have to pay sales and use tax on the equipment in their facilities. Chris Lloyd is with the consulting firm McGuire Woods. At a data center business conference in Richmond last summer, he explained the sales tax exemption's history.
So the idea is, why would you want to tax the inputs to a final product? And the same concept carried forward with the data center sales use tax exemption. Virginia was the first state to do that, and now I think we're up to 37 or 38 states which have now mimicked that.
Even last summer, Lloyd said the tax exemption was still important, especially as those other states adopted it. And part of the strategy to keep that carve-out feels unique because it relies on something corporations don't usually look to, union labor.
In 2016, we worked 14 million hours. Today, we work 28 million hours in 2025.
That's Don Slayman, the political coordinator for IBEW Local 26, an electricians union in Northern Virginia. As the data center industry invested tens of billions in new buildings since 2009, his union's membership exploded. And the pay? Slayman said apprentice electricians make almost $30 an hour, journeymen make about $60, and they get benefits.
This industry here from the get-go has been responsive to workers, has been inclusive of trade unions. Because they are leased before they're built, it's all about time to market, and it's all about using skilled labor, getting the guts done properly from the get-go.
To that end, IBEW members packed into the General Assembly building recently to plead their case. Here's Jason Parker with IBEW, who's among those who fear reinstating the tax would see data centers leave.
So this is a coveted industry around the country. And it's very important to us here in Virginia, so we ain't got to pack our bags and go travel to do this work we're doing right now.
That data center departure fear is shared by localities who benefit from other taxes paid by the industry. According to Loudoun County's Board of Supervisors, which the largest concentration of data centers in the world calls home, changes to the tax exemption, quote, puts even more pressure on property owners through the local real estate tax and other revenue enhancements. That's likely because, according to the county's own numbers, they collected taxes on $17.3 billion worth of data center personal property or equipment, and even more in real property taxes considering the industry's local assessed land value of about $42 billion. There have been similar tax windfalls in other localities, including Prince William County, where a long-running data center expansion project has driven up local revenues but led to pushback from residents. Chief among opponents is Senator Danica Roem. Roem filed the sales tax rollback budget amendment Lucas is now championing.
They don't need that money. That's for money that we need for fixing roads and feeding kids.
Notably, about $300 million of the funds raised by ditching the tax break would be directed to roads in and around Rome's district, and Lucas, so far, isn't backing down. In a social media post Wednesday night, she compared the strength of her position to that of, quote, the 3 types of steel we used in the shipyard. Back in the early 70s, Lucas famously was the first female ship fitter at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. To IBEW's Slayman, that means something to the future of the data center industry and whatever happens to their tax break.
There's not an anti-union bone in Senator Lucas's body. We have full faith in Senator Lucas knows what she's up to.
But Lucas may not be swayed.
A lot of folks are saying that they're going to be leaving, going other places. I don't believe that's going to happen. I think they will continue to build in Virginia, but I think that they understand there's going to be a different playing field now.
The future of the data center sales tax should be decided in the coming weeks. In Richmond, I'm Brad Kuttner.
A wildlife group is suing the federal government to protect a rare bird found in coastal Virginia and the Carolinas. WHR's Catherine Hafner reports on their efforts.
The coastal black-throated green warbler is one of the first birds Will Harlan learned to recognize decades ago.
It's got this vibrant yellow head that flashes through the canopy. It's a gorgeous bird with a beautiful, throaty song.
But now he rarely, if ever, hears that song. Only 1,000 or 2,000 of the birds, called Wayne's warblers, are left. They're in a handful of protected areas, including the Great Dismal Swamp. Harlan is Southeast Director for the Center for Biological Diversity. The nonprofit is suing the Fish and Wildlife Service for failing to act on a years-old petition to list the species as endangered.
This bird, frankly, can't wait any longer for listing protections, and it's running out of time.
He says if Wayne's warblers are suffering, that means the wetlands and forests they rely on are too. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service declined to comment on the lawsuit.
Centera Health is expanding its school-based telehealth clinics to Newport News and Portsmouth. WHRO's I-Ching Wang reports on how these clinics will function.
The program pairs Centera doctors and nurses who connect virtually to evaluate students in real time with on-site nurses at schools. Telehealth clinics at Newsom Park Elementary School and Stony Run Elementary School in Newport News started operating in the fall. There are coming to 3 more in Portsmouth. Centera says the clinics aim to reduce absenteeism and make care more accessible, especially in schools serving low-income families. The model is already operating in Hampton and Harrisonburg and now serves 10 schools statewide. I-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
Suffolk Public Schools proposed increasing next year's operating budget by $9 million, mostly driven by higher staff pay and benefits. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports.
Nearly 3/4 of Superintendent John Gordon's funding proposal will pay for new hires, higher health and benefits costs, and staff raises in the 2026-27 school year. If approved, teachers and support staff will see at least 2% pay increases. Bus driver pay would jump by 11%. School board members and the superintendent would also get raises. It adds up to a $225 million proposed operating budget, surpassing $250 million when including grants and the self-funded food services program. Gordon's asking the city for $7 million more than this school year to make it happen. He's also waiting to see if the General Assembly will increase contributions from what former Governor Glenn Youngkin proposed. The division's finance officer says Youngkin's amount falls short of what's needed to pay for the state's share of 2% teacher raises. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
A note of transparency, Suffolk Public Schools is a member of HRETA, which owns WHRO's broadcast license.
The idea behind Housing Choice Vouchers, the federal program formerly known as Section 8, is to let people choose where they live. But WHO business and growth reporter Toby Cox reports a new analysis shows those options are limited in Hampton Roads.
Zenobia Wilson says the last few months have been hell. When she found out her landlord wasn't renewing her lease, she scrambled to find a new home for her and her 2 school-aged daughters. They had to be out by the end of October, but that deadline came and went.
I literally have nowhere to go.
One challenge was that she was trying to find housing with a voucher. The voucher program provides assistance for renting privately owned apartments or homes through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. The tenant pays a portion of the rent based on their income, and the voucher covers the rest. In a Norfolk coffee shop, Wilson brings up a chart on a laptop screen. The table breaks down the maximum rent subsidy for the housing voucher. She points to a zip code for near downtown Norfolk.
For me, I would need a 3-bedroom. So as you see right here, it says the cap for your voucher would be $2,000.
Then she subtracts a few hundred to budget for utilities.
If I find something in $1,900, $1,700, I could apply for that.
HUD says one of the program's goals is to give low-income families options. With a voucher, they could move to a better neighborhood with better schools and more opportunities. Or at least that's the theory. Finding housing with a voucher is hard, especially when there's a lack of affordable housing. As Melissa Bonfiglio with Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia says,
a voucher is of no use if there's no actual unit that you can move into with a voucher.
So, if you have a housing voucher, where would you have the most luck finding a place to live in Hampton Roads? Johnny Finn at Christopher Newport University helped WHRO find out.
These are the numbers that you want to pay attention to.
Finn has researched race and housing issues in the region for years, including housing vouchers. He used census data to calculate the percentage of rental units priced above and below HUD's standard rent allowances. Finn found almost all the voucher-eligible housing units are in highly segregated, high-poverty neighborhoods.
There just aren't very many voucher-eligible rental units in middle and upper-income, racially integrated neighborhoods.
While the voucher program is centered around moving where you want to live, he says the structure of the housing market in Hampton Roads just isn't set up for that.
And then we go around talking about choice as if people who use vouchers have the choice to go anywhere that they want. Really what we're doing is we're blaming them for not going to better neighborhoods when they don't have the opportunity to do that in the first place.
Back at the coffee shop, Wilson says she first received a housing voucher in 2022 when she moved out of Tidewater Gardens. That's the first public housing complex in Norfolk to come down in the St. Paul's area to pave the way for a massive redevelopment project. She says the voucher program opened her eyes to possibilities, but
It also puts you in la-la land. You think you can go get this 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a big white yard, and then you apply for it and get denied.
Wilson spent hundreds of dollars in application fees to apartments over several months before she finally caught a break. She found a new apartment east of downtown Norfolk in December. The family moved in January. She says everyone is settling in after months of uncertainty. And she says the new neighborhood is quiet, except for the trains.
So all night long, we hear the train. And sometimes it shakes our house.
Wilson says at the end of the day, the voucher program worked for her. There's a roof over her and her daughter's heads, but that rumbling train is a reminder that the apartment was a last resort rather than a first choice. Young Terrace and Calvert Square are 2 more public housing complexes in Norfolk that will eventually be torn down. Before thousands of residents have to move, Wilson hopes the city better prepares them for the realities of using a voucher. And she offers her own advice. Get your credit in order and start the search as soon as you can. Toby Cox, WHRO News.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Toby Cox, Catherine Hefner, Nick McNamara, Steve Walsh, and Yi-Ching Wang.
WMRA's Randy B. Hagee, WVTF's Brad Kuttner, and Pamela D'Angelo. Also Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder that you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed.
You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Barry Graham.
And I'm Jordan Christie. Have a great weekend.